Good, so it's happening.
Oh,
Movie buff specialist Phil and John are back with another episode of Marvel and whatever new is out in theaters. And this week was a tough one for us because the big movie was The Marvels. And we can't watch The Marvels yet because we're not there. We are only on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So instead, we went and saw Priscilla. And something tells me I'm going to enjoy Priscilla more than I'm going to enjoy The Marvels when I actually sit down and watch The Marvels. So exciting times. Happy. Didn't even realize Sofia Coppola had a new movie coming out. It has a movie in my top 10 movies of all time with Lost in Translation. And I didn't even know this movie was coming out. That's how off I am. SAG-AFTRA looks like their strike is ending. The Writers Guild's strike already ended. So maybe that'll mean more movies starting to come out. But I have a feeling based on the trailers I saw today before Priscilla, we're in a little bit of trouble. We're in a little bit of trouble.
But I think the big thing with the strike coming to a close is we're going to know when movies like Priscilla are coming out instead. I think that's the big thing. Is like without actor promotion, we just lost a lot of the discussion around a movie like Priscilla, which is wild because this movie was actually really good.
Yeah. I always say, so I got to pull up, I got to know what I'm talking about here when I talk about Priscilla because I am an adamant Sofia Coppola defender. I really am. I've always defended Sofia Coppola. I think, you know what? This is how much I like Sofia Coppola. I don't think she's the worst part of The Godfather 3. I think there's so many other mess ups in that movie. She's fine with me. She's not in nearly as much of that movie. She does not ruin it nearly as much as everything else. That's how much I like Sofia Coppola. That being said, Virgin Suicides, perfect movie. Lost in Translation, top 10 movie for me. So, like, there you go. There's two right off the bat. Marie Antoinette, I haven't seen in a long time, but I enjoyed it. I didn't see The Beguiled or On the Rocks. I like Somewhere. That's how much of a Sofia Coppola fan I am. I really enjoy the movie Somewhere. So I love that this movie came out and that it is counter programming to the Marvels right now because we need small movies like this one coming out. Yeah. This to me felt like Sofia Coppola looking Baz Luhrmann directly in the eye and just saying, I hate you and everything you stand for. That's what this felt like to me because she made the exact opposite movie from a different person's point of view. I like Baz Luhrmann. This movie is art. Yeah. That Elvis movie is not art. This movie is art. And this movie's not going to be for everyone, but Sofia Coppola movies aren't for everyone. The amount of people, when I tell people Lost in Translation's in my top 10, I either get, wow, I love that movie, or you're an idiot. There's no in between on that because that's Sofia Coppola. I really enjoyed this movie a lot, though. I really, really did. And Patrick Stahl says, is Priscilla part of the Presley Cinematic Universe? John, we might have to do the Presley Cinematic Universe next after we're done with this.
Oh, I hope not. There's a lot of it. We've already talked about Elvis last year when it was, a Best Picture nom and everything. Bold having, it's so fascinating that we have two Elvis movies come out within 12 months of each other. And this one, like you said, the way Sofia Coppola does everything in this movie, it's so small. It's so I don't even know the best word to describe what this movie is because it's so it feels so uneventful. It feels so mundane, I guess is a good way to put it. But it's so beautiful because of that. This movie wowed me. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. I infamously not a big fan of Lost in Translation.
Nobody's perfect, John. Nobody's perfect.
But this movie, I just felt everything going on in this movie. I felt exactly what Sofia Coppola wanted to say with this movie. I felt that we're getting this picture of this icon of Americana in this negative light. And Sofia Coppola does it so subtly that you almost don't realize how much you're getting sucked in to really this story of abuse.
Mhm.
And it doesn't it almost doesn't even register about how abusive Elvis is to Priscilla in this movie until you really start digging into it. And at the same time, you are treated with gorgeous cinematography, fantastic blocking. I don't think I will ever talk about blocking as much as I will as we describe this movie, because it is so fascinating how Sofia Coppola has each of the actors move in these
Mhm.
scenes.
Mhm. So that Elvis is, what I always I think about the first moment when you
Mhm.
see Elvis, when she walks in the room, how there's people who go by, but the focus just stays on him. That's really
Yeah.
cool. I do want to say before we keep going, John, I should have started with this. I totally forgot. We do have a Twitter now.
You do.
Movie Buff Specialist has a Twitter. It's just movie and then specialist spelled the same way as we have it for Survivor Specialist, which is SPCLSTS. So all the vowels are gone in specialist, but it's just movie specialist. So go follow us there. We're actually going to start putting out some material and everything like that. But I really I agree with everything you're saying. And what I always say about Lost in Translation, two of my favorite movies of all time, Lost in Translation and American Beauty, always get the complaint in the world of like, oh, it's about privileged white people.
Mhm.
And it's just them like complaining. But I think what's amazing about those two movies, and especially Lost in Translation, is it really displays how even you can have the most privilege in the world, you can have the most money in the world. If you're not happy, you're not happy. You're just not happy.
Mhm.
And some people,
Yeah.
no matter what they do, they're just never going to be happy. And I think Sofia Coppola is the greatest director of unhappiness in situations where you should be happy ever. Ever,
Yeah.
hands down. Like Terrence Malick couldn't hold a candle, and he's got plenty of. I mean, all of his movies. I guess you're not really supposed to be happy, but you know what I mean. Like it's all of her characters have everything. And there's a line in this movie where
Mhm.
Elvis says, "Baby, you have everything a girl could want," and yet Priscilla Presley's not happy.
No.
And in Lost in Translation, no, Charlotte and Bob are not happy. And in the Virgin Suicides, they live in this perfect, idealistic community. The name of the movie is The Virgin Suicides. Just take a guess at what happens, okay? There are, she is perfect at this. Somewhere, for anybody who hasn't seen Somewhere, one of my, I think one of the most underrated movies ever. And it's hard because it starts off with about 15 minutes of Steven Dorff driving in a circle in a race car. And it's just a high shot of it. John, you'll love it. Even though
That
it's only
sounds
an hour and 40
great.
minutes long. But it's pretty much about a father who's an actor and his daughter and them trying to bond at the Chateau Marmont while he's shooting a movie, and she just went along with him. And a lot of what Sofia Coppola pulls from is experience with her father, where when she
Mhm.
was growing up, she'd always go along on these things that everybody thought were so cool, and she never felt that. And she has made a career out of making movies in that genre. Throw
Yep.
The Bling Ring out. The Bling Ring's not a Sofia Coppola movie. She is so good at making movies about women who are so unhappy, even though they have everything that they could possibly want according to society. And yeah, it's just perfect. I love when Sofia Coppola is on her game, because when she is on her game, man, she's one of the all time great directors.
Yeah. I think that's the really important thing with this movie is that like you see that Sofia Coppola just knows what she's doing the entire time.
Hmm.
There was never an instance where I was like, okay, why is this here?
Yeah.
Why are we seeing this? And I mean, the topic of this movie is pretty rough. It's especially like through a 21st century lens as we
Hmm.
look at it now, and we see like you know Elvis was 10 years older than Priscilla Presley, and he started grooming her from the age of 15.
Hmm.
And it's rough. It's a rough watch. And you watch as Priscilla's kind of enamored by the thought of it all. And then the reality sinks in. And I think one of the biggest moments in this movie, and it's so subtle again, is when she's playing with the dog in the front yard.
Yeah.
And the woman comes and is just like, oh, honey, you can't be out here making a scene.
Mhm.
And it's just like that's the moment where you realize this is not what Priscilla ever imagined this could have been.
And I actually think that it's a good counterpart to what Baz Luhrmann's movie was, because
Mhm.
Baz Luhrmann's movie, as much as I made my joke earlier, I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was fine. I
Yeah.
liked Austin Butler a lot in that movie. I still think Tom
Mhm.
Hanks wasn't as bad as everybody thought or everybody said, but
He was pretty bad.
but I what's funny about the movie Elvis is it's told with that cocaine fueled rage of Baz Luhrmann, where nothing can
Yeah.
focus and flashing lights. Look at the shiny object. But that's kind of what showbiz is, right? It's kind of I don't know where to go, and it's Elvis being abused over and over and
Mhm.
over again by all the people who are taking advantage of him to make millions and millions and millions of dollars. Whether it's the colonel, whether it's his family, whether it's whoever, like he was being abused. He was being used and manipulated, and he was too stupid to understand, because I do think that Elvis had his heart in the right place with everything he did. And
Mhm.
so he didn't understand how other people couldn't. And he starts to get hit. And we all know the story of Elvis, but we don't all know the story of Priscilla Presley. That's a
Yeah.
name I've heard, and Michael Carroll mentions it here. Second best movie with Priscilla after Naked Gun. I mean, Naked Gun is incredible. That's really what I
Mhm.
know Priscilla Presley from, is
Right.
because I knew she was married to Elvis and I knew she was in Naked Gun. That's really it. And so to get this movie and have it be the exact opposite of that Baz Luhrmann one, it's showing how fame is a nightmare for some people and not what they expect. Elvis wanted to make music and he wanted to do good for his family and he wanted to,
Mhm.
for his mama, that's what he was, a mama, mama, mama.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted to do. But he couldn't, because then there's the business side of things. And Priscilla Presley is living the dream scenario of every young girl. You're dating and going to get married to Elvis Presley. Every 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old. I mean, honestly, as messed up as it is, every 14 or 15-year-old, like Priscilla was like, oh my God, it's Elvis Presley. And so you see that, and then you see how once you get into that life, this is not as good as I thought it was going to be. And, it's always whenever a celebrity commits suicide or something, everybody goes, really? And there's such
Mhm.
disgust from the regular people in the world because they can't possibly understand. But happiness is kind of innate, right? Like you're either going to be
Yeah.
happy or you're not. And there's going to be certain moments that are going to make you happy, certain things that are going to make you happy. But I think the scariest, I feel like it's in a movie, but it's that realization of you got everything you ever wanted and you're still not happy. That's the emptiest feeling in the world. And I feel like that's what this movie
Mhm.
is capturing perfectly through Priscilla's eyes.
Yeah, and not even that, just through the camera's lens too, because I
Yeah.
feel like Sofia Coppola intentionally uses negative space in this movie in a way to show how isolated Priscilla is. All those shots in like the living room of the Elva of like Graceland, where it's just Priscilla and she's there. Priscilla's almost never in the center in a single shot in this movie. She's
Yeah.
always kind of like off to the side. And I think that's just great storytelling from Sofia Coppola and the decision she's making. And again, with the blocking in these scenes, because Priscilla, despite being the protagonist of this film, is historically a side character in the story of Elvis instead, and it's
Yep.
shown through the camera and the blocking in this scene. You talked about that first scene with Elvis, where he's the center. Almost every scene with Elvis has him in the exact center of the screen,
Mhm.
and and then when Priscilla doesn't have Elvis, she's still off to the side, and the center of the screen's empty. It's this empty space that just goes to show how much loneliness is permeating around her, because she gave up pretty much her entire life to live this, like you said, this like American girl dream of living with Elvis Presley, and it's nothing. It's
Yeah.
literally symbolized by the lack of anything being there.
Yeah. A movie, and obviously it's a totally different tone, but I think of The
Mhm.
Favorite, right? Where Emma
Yep.
Stone, that entire movie, and Rachel Weisz are going head to head trying to get Olivia Colman's love and support and be the one. And Emma Stone at the end of that movie, that scene is absolutely iconic. That shot, that last shot with all the rabbits,
Yeah.
it's brilliant because congratulations. You like that? I mean, it's insane. And so I love this idea because everybody assumes, okay, you're going out. We see the pictures. What's the paparazzi capturing? What's happening here? What's happening there? But what they don't see is when Elvis is on tour and you're at home and your whole entire role is to just be there so he can come back and level off. One of my favorite parts of this movie, because it really shows the power that Priscilla had, was when he says, I think we should take a break. And she says, okay, you just tell me when to leave. And she walks out of the room and he says, all right, baby, I don't want you to go.
Yeah.
It's amazing because it shows that once she started leaning into his game and you're starting to kind of see her rise up and gain the respect for herself and everything like that. It was really, really it was powerful, small moments like that.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I love about Sofia Coppola movies. She doesn't have the shootouts or anything massive. There's no major twists in her movies. They just unfold. And if you can empathize with the small moments, she just does them better than anyone.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it also really helps. Like Kaylee Spaney's performance in this movie is incredible.
Did you like her more than Elordi, or did you like Elordi more?
It's tough because, like, the thing with Elordi, as I was watching the movie, I really thought, man, it's bold to be like. Could you imagine being Elordi here, having just had Austin Butler nominated for playing this exact same role?
I think Elordi was better.
I think they both were quite fantastic. I think Spaney's performance is so subtle, and it's a lot of like body movement and the way that Priscilla is presenting herself, and it's not as much like it's not an over the top performance, but it's so powerful in just like these like diminutive moments where it's like you said, where she's just like okay, and she like goes out of the room, just tell me when to leave, right? Like it's those little things from Spaney's performance that I really appreciated, but it took me a while to warm up to them in the film.
Yeah. And I think like Michael Carroll says here, this movie was so uncomfortable because of the true facts. Reminded me of Killers of the Flower Moon, knowing what Leo's character does the whole time, chilling. I think that's why I like the Lordy more, was because we're so used to seeing Elvis as this larger than life, can't do anything wrong, American icon. And the one thing you have to remember with this movie, right, is it's based on Priscilla Presley's memoir.
Yep.
Everybody's going to tell their own story when they tell their own story. And who knows what's real, fake, what's exaggerated, what's not. We don't know. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, well, I read this about Elvis and then I read this about Priscilla, so I know more than you. I think everybody comes out of this movie. You have to know who your narrator is. And your narrator is Priscilla Presley. But I think what struck me about Elordi was Elvis is kind of scary in this movie.
Yeah.
And I don't think Austin Butler could have made Elvis scary. Maybe he could have, because isn't Austin Butler's the bad guy in, or one of the bad guys in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So he could have been scary. But it's hard to hit the charisma of Elvis and also the
the temper of him, the temper.
Yeah, the temper. Yeah, I couldn't think of the word. But yeah, like that's tough.
Yeah, because there are moments where, and again, like I really commend Sofia Coppola for, there's no physical abuse in this movie, but there's always the looming threat of it, you feel like, right?
There's
like,
the one part, right, with the pillow where he says, I don't want to be with no man or something like that. Right, yes. I think he hits her. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's like the moment where he like throws the chair and it goes right by her and things like that, right? Is that, like you said, there's that threat of everything there. I think you're right. I think Elordi does it in such a way where it's like, it feels like a light switch, right? Where it's just like, this is how fast this could happen. And that's the scary thing about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are always the scarier parts, right? We talked about, we talked about Shame probably close to 3 or 4 years ago at this point, but we talked about the movie Shame and Michael Fassbender in that movie. The little moments when Carey Mulligan and he like loses it on Carey Mulligan, they're terrifying. And it takes a seriously good actor to be able to pull those moments off. And what I liked about this one was it never felt like he was breaking what version of Elvis he really was playing. So, yeah, like Michael Carroll said, it was like watching a friend's parents fight as a kid, uncomfortable, because you're watching this and you don't feel like you should be. It's too intimate. And they're almost trying to hide what they really want to say, mainly because they don't know how to say it to each other, or they don't want to say it to each other. But yeah, you did kind of feel like you were just watching an argument. It had a very similar feel to like a Linklater movie. It was kind of similar in like the Before movies, where you almost felt like you shouldn't be listening to what is being said and what's being done. And I think a lot of that is just established by the disturbing element of the fact that she's in 9th grade when they meet, and that does not stop him from doing anything. Well, it stops him from doing stuff, but it doesn't stop him from pursuing her.
Well, and that's one of the scariest things about this entire movie is this idea that like he's like, we get that like altruistic moment where he's like, no, baby, like we're not going to do this, we're not going to do anything, we need to wait till the right time and stuff like that. It's like, okay, so you're not willing to sleep with her just yet, but you've literally been like building her up to that point, and like it's a scary thing. And we're living in a time where people, you know, are becoming more and more aware of like grooming in society and how it's used to manipulate people. And it's really scary when you see it, because you see how people can fall into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's uncomfortable to watch, and it's even more uncomfortable when you're watching it and you are literally watching an American icon who has been praised and praised and praised and praised. And look, like I said, again, this is from Priscilla Presley's point of view. So, you know, you take her word for it. Elvis, if he wrote the same thing, probably would have wrote something different. You know, it is what it is. But it's a tougher watch when you already have so much built in about the person you're watching. You have so much in your memory bank of how you're supposed to view somebody. And what I think is kind of an overlooked disturbing part of this movie, and maybe it's not overlooked, but I have only seen it 8 hours ago, so maybe that has something to do with it. The fact of how this all starts with, hey, I do the music here, and I am, you know, I talk to Elvis, I'm friends with him. Do you want to come to his house? It almost feels like there was a sense of like hunting her down for
it. Has kind of come that way, right? Like,
yeah,
it feels like this character who like may or may not be in on it type of deal. And I think it's kind of framed well in the movie, where at first it seems like it's because you're American and he like misses that home and like that aspect of it. But it gets to the kissing part a little too soon.
Yeah.
And me personally, not knowing what the age difference was between Elvis and Priscilla, I was sitting there at the beginning of this movie as I'm watching this, and it was like, wait a minute, how much older is Elvis? And then to find out that it is like a full 10 years, it gets really uncomfortable.
And Michael Carroll just said they get into it in the book. She was a target.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Crazy. It's crazy. And what I love about how Coppola handles it, though, is she doesn't come right out and say that. She doesn't tell you she was a target. She lets you put the pieces together yourself. And I think what she wants you to do is be skeptical in a way that a 14, 15-year-old girl isn't being skeptical, but start to kind of come to the realization of everything that's been done wrong as it's going. And Michael Carroll also said, didn't she also write this in the 80s opposed to today? Either way, the story happened. It doesn't matter really when you wrote it. If you're a part of that story of a 14 and 24-year-old meeting each other, or 15 and 25, whatever it is, and kind of starting a relationship, it doesn't matter when it took place or when it was written, it happened. And I do think that it really showed the difference in mentality, though, in American culture back in the 1950s and 1960s, like late 1950s, early 1960s, especially maybe in the military sense, because if you did this nowadays, I don't think there's many people who would say, sure, my daughter can go hang out with a super famous rock star and his friends, especially when she's 14 or 15 years old. I don't think you're ever going to see that. But there was some sort of star power that Elvis just had over the situation and over the culture, that you have a father, which I actually found out it's not her biological father. It wasn't. His biological father died. But you have a father who's like, okay, I don't really know what to do in this situation. And again, Sofia Coppola only very briefly gives us the argument through the wall. But for the most part, she's leaving it up to you of, how do you feel that everybody's reacting?
Yeah, I really appreciate the way Sofia Coppola puts it in this movie. And it's just like that little moment of like, aren't there women his own age?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just that, it's like a single line is enough to make you think, yeah, there sure are. What is going on here? Why is this a thing?
Yeah, I know. And she never really addresses it. She just lets it kind of hang there. And
yeah, which is, I think that like that restraint is part of what makes this movie so well done.
Yeah. And that's how all her movies are. Sofia Coppola doesn't push, she shows restraint in everything she does. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but she has her style and she goes with it. And, if this movie were to get Oscar nominations, I think people would call it Oscar bait, but it's not. It is literally the type of movie that Sofia Coppola makes. Sofia Coppola isn't making every movie saying, oh, I'm going to win an Oscar for this. Maybe she is because she just thinks she can. But Sofia Coppola's style is this. This is what she does. And this is what she does best. And you feel the emptiness. And we were looking it up after we saw it. We were talking about, it was kind of distracting how much taller Jacob Elordi is than Kaylee Spaney. And in real life, Elvis was 6 foot, and I think Spaney was like 5'6". It's a 6-inch difference. In this movie, Elvis was 6'5", and she was 5'1". And while some people could see that as distracting, I think it's a statement of,
absolutely.
That's how much more important and bigger he was. She was, she looks like a child the entire movie, but I think she was meant to look like a child the entire movie because to Elvis, she's the same thing. Elvis is larger than life. She's not, so it's wild decisions being made across the board here, but
beautiful decisions. I think we kind of started talking about it at the beginning when you were talking about how much you like Sofia Coppola. I think she's just one of these most underrated directors at this point.
Yeah.
And she obviously, she has the name recognition as the daughter of someone widely considered one of the greatest American directors of all time. I think a lot of people don't take enough time to just watch what she does as an artist and see what she puts out there. And I don't know if this movie does get does garner some attention for the Oscars. I think it's pretty well deserved. I don't know what exactly it would be for, but I would be shocked if it doesn't get anything.
I would hope it would get some nominations at least for production design, costuming, hairstyling. I would assume it's going to get stuff like that. I could be wrong, but that's just where my head is at this point. I mean, I'm going to look right now.
We have, there's some other, those categories are things that have kind of opened up too, because Dune got pushed back.
Dune's not coming out this year?
No, it's not coming out until March.
Really?
They pushed it back. It was supposed to open this weekend.
I thought it was still opening in December so that it could get Oscar stuff. So it's totally out of the
No,
running for everything.
it's out of the running for everything. So all of those categories that Dune would just take are all
Interesting.
up in the air now.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. I'm kind of surprised. Like Jacob Elordi is at 17 on Gold Derby. Now, granted, this movie just released, so that could change. You know, these only the big ones. I'm just looking at Gold Derby, and it seems like that's cinematography. It's right now it's 9th for costume design. I gotta assume it's gonna sneak in for costume design unless just not enough people see it, but I don't know. That's just what I think. Michael Carroll, before we move on, John, he said, how did no Elvis songs affect the movie?
It was so important. Such an important decision.
Go ahead.
I think there's one Elvis song used as an instrumental version of, was it Love Me Tender?
I don't remember.
I can't remember, but it's used right before Priscilla like goes over to Graceland for the first time. Only use of an Elvis song in the entire movie. Fantastic, because this is not an Elvis story. And I think having Elvis music in there kind of distracts from the fact that it's not a story about Elvis.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's that, and also the fact that I don't think they can get it. I don't think they had the rights to put it in the movie because of the estate, right?
Probably, but at the same time, I still think it was the right decision.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. Yeah, this was worth it. I really enjoyed this movie. I think, you know, if you're not a superhero fan, I think it's a good one to go see. It has an 83% Rotten Tomatoes right now. Cool. The Marvels is a 59%. That's probably high because there's some people who just are going to say it's good so that they can get some clicks on their website. We'll see.
It might be low. You have to remember that, like, Captain Marvel got review bombed because it was about a woman. So that might actually be low.
No, I feel like, but it got review bombed by fans. It didn't get review bombed by critics.
That's true.
Yeah, this is getting review bombed by. I don't think this is getting review bombed by critics. I think they're probably being overly positive to be like, "Yeah, we love Brie Larson. Maybe we'll get an interview one day." You know,
we'll
next
see
goal
in 6 months when we have to watch it, right?
What'd you say?
So we'll find out in 6 months when we actually have to watch it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to throw out next goal wins currently has a 48%. So,
Psycho was Edie. What are you doing?
What are you doing, man? Well, Michael Carroll says, "And holdovers will take the best picture space." We're doing holdovers next week. So it's playing by me. I'm excited that it's playing by me. I can watch a movie. That's always exhilarating. And right now, Davine Joy Randolph has jumped to the top of the list for Best Supporting Actress. She was nowhere to be found for a while, and now she is the favorite to knock off really what is shaping up to be a kind of weak category right now. But still, she has totally taken over at the top of that.
Should be interesting.
I mean, right now the top two are her, Emily Blunt, and then you have Danielle
like
Brooks,
Emily Blunt from Oppenheimer,
and then you have Danielle Brooks and Taraji P. Henson for The Color Purple, and Jodie Foster for NYAD. I don't know how you say that. It's a weak category, such a weak category. So maybe Vanessa Kirby will be good in Napoleon, and we can get that.
Oh, I hope so.
I did like Ridley Scott when they asked him, "What do you say to the people who nitpick your movie or say that there's like historical inaccuracies?" He said, "Get a life." Yeah. I love Ridley Scott because that's what they did to him with Gladiator and Troy. And he's like, "You're all out of your mind." Like, I'm making a movie, and I know I'm making a movie. I love him. All right, let's move on to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So. Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is a movie that came out in 2017. It has James Gunn, and I like, it's annoying because John is just such a tryhard. You know, he's just such a tryhard that he's going to make me actually defend this movie as if I loved it. And I am going to have to put him in his place a couple times to explain why things were good that he didn't think they were. But it really bothers me at the same time that I'm going to have to sit here and talk overly positive about a Marvel movie just to go against you. But that being said, I gave it 3 stars. I liked it. I have it right now as my 3rd highest ranked Marvel movie. I think it's better than the first Guardians. Honestly, watching this one actually almost makes me want to drop the first Guardians to 2.5 stars because I felt like this movie's tone and like pace and everything was so much better. And the one thing that I definitely put my rose-colored glasses on for was how they all met in the first one, and the fact that this didn't have to have that was nice and kind of cut out the clunkiness. But I liked it, John. What's your
I'm the
experience
exact
with this movie?
opposite.
Yeah.
I loathe this movie. This is my third lowest ranked Marvel movie. I think I just don't like the Guardians of the Galaxy all that much. I don't think I like them as characters. I don't think I like them. I I don't like their interactions as characters. We kind of see partnering off in this movie, which led to some good scenes. I will admit there are some good parts in this movie that I do enjoy, but so much of this movie is me rolling my eyes is what's happening. I hate the James Gunn humor in this movie, and that's really weird. As someone who has a James Gunn movie in his top 100, I usually love James Gunn. I can't stand it in this movie. I think a lot of this has it has a lot of studio involved with it. Maybe the James Gunn stuff is the stuff I like. Maybe it's the studio stuff I don't like. But I don't know. This movie just does not do it for me whatsoever.
You know what it was? So I talked about with the first Captain America movie, because there were a couple things where you were talking about, oh, they do this, that, whatever. It felt like a comic book movie to me, the first Captain America, and that's why I actually like it, because it didn't feel like an action superhero movie. It felt like a comic book movie. He jumps too high, and he's it's so overly stylized. And this one, I don't really consider the Guardians of the Galaxy to be superheroes. They don't really have any superpowers, so I don't think they're superheroes. I think they're just like a band of smugglers, essentially. They just go and do quirky, interesting things, whatever. And I felt like the tone of that hit for me because it wasn't trying to be a superhero. There'd be things that would be mentioned, whatever, but it did feel like just a group of bandits going and doing stuff. And they should have this kind of snarky whatever mentality about everything. And I did like I know you were talking about at the beginning that you didn't like when like Baby Groot is just dancing and
Oh
the
my
action
god, I
going on
can't
behind
stand
it.
it.
See, I like that a lot because I think it's poking fun at how ridiculous all of this stuff is most of the time. Like, fighting gigantic monster, and this is the dramatic part. And it's kind of James Gunn. Maybe it's not him saying it, but in my mind, it was of him just being like, they're going to win. So let's just have Baby Groot walk around and sing and dance to the song that's playing because it doesn't really matter. You know that they're going to win.
I think actually like one of the things that really bugs me about it is the Guardians of the Galaxy focus too much on the music sometimes, which is a weird thing for me to say as, a former music major and someone who like loves musical theater and things like that. But it is a little weird for me to say, hey, there's too much focus on music, but I find that the movies identify themselves too much with music. If you'll remember, like when the first Guardians of the Galaxy came around, like a lot of the music in that became very popular. After this movie came out, ELO blew up. And, there are some of us who've been listening to ELO forever because their dads forced them to. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying my dad listened to ELO, so I listened to ELO.
All right, I got to say that before you use the word forced accidentally, ELO is arguably the most underrated band of all time.
I don't disagree.
One of the all-time great albums. So continue. I just want to.
You start going around the word forced. I'm not disagreeing here. I'm just saying a lot of people just like focus too much on the music here, and Baby Groot is such a cash grab by the studio. It's not even funny. Clearly, this is a character that is designed to sell toys.
Normally I'd feel that way because when I see Baby Yoda, I just want to smash my head against the wall.
This is the first Baby Yoda.
Yeah, but
it's the same character.
It is, but I haven't actually watched The Mandalorian. But the thing is with this, it made sense with the story that was actually taking place because Groot becomes like a twig or whatever at the end of the last one. So he has to become Baby Groot first. And so because it fit with the story, I didn't feel like it was as much of a cash grab. And again, it felt like a little tongue in cheek of, you don't have to worry about any of the Guardians dying because the tree thing doesn't die.
Sure.
So that didn't bother me as much, but I do get where you're coming from because now that we are 6 years removed from this movie, everything that Kevin Feige and Marvel are doing is a cash grab. All of it.
Yeah.
I mean, they just want to sell whatever they can sell. I mean, I live 2 hours away from Disney World. I love going to Disney World. You go into that store, the Wonderful World of Disney store, the big one at Disney Springs. There is so much Marvel stuff there, and you're like, why? Why do they need to have that? You know, it's not your normal, it's not a t-shirt, it's not a toy sword. They have just so much stuff because they're trying to get a cash grab. Maybe I was more forgiving. Maybe I like James Gunn's style of humor, and I know you do too. So I'm not saying you don't, but maybe I was a little bit more forgiving because this one actually made me laugh. And a lot of times I don't try to go into these movies as the grumpy old man, but a lot of times when I do go into these movies, I say to myself, nothing that's going to be said in this movie is going to make me laugh because it's meant for nerds, and I'm not going to laugh because I don't like Marvel movies. This movie had me laughing quite a few times. And so maybe it just won that like natural belly laughs, even as I'm trying to fight it because I'm too cool for this movie. And like for me, I thought one of the funniest moments involves Baby Groot, and it's the toe. That toe part killed me. That part killed me. I thought that was so funny because I wasn't expecting it. And I think the first Guardians of the Galaxy didn't take chances like that. And in that part, I felt like that was James Gunn with Super and Slither really trying to be like, look, guys, like I'm still behind the scenes here. Because if you put that in the hands of a no-name director, which we've talked a lot about on this podcast, how a lot of times these Marvel directors, you know, they're no names because they're trying to just mold them into whatever. They're not going to have them come out with a toe. That was James Gunn's idea, and there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I do find that particular scene, I'm glad you brought that scene up, because that gag goes on for way too long, and it drives me insane that it goes on that long. Like, again, like, the toe is great, but, like, the rest of it, where it keeps going after that, that's the problem I have with it. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the issue where it gets me, because, like, I find that a lot of the jokes in this movie go on too long. And a lot of the jokes take away from emotional moments. Because I think there are some beautiful emotional moments in this movie that are ruined by jokes.
Such as, show your work.
Such as, what's that line by Yondu that's supposed to be like super, super emotional, but it sounds so dumb? What is it? He might be your father, but he ain't your daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, should be emotional. It's just like, I can't take you seriously. And it's like the I'm Mary Poppins of it all. Like, it's so bad. It's just like, give us the emotional moment. Give us the emotion, and don't feel you need to have a joke there because it's going to be awkward. Because I don't think it is going to be.
Yeah, I just feel like this, like the Guardians of the Galaxy whole thing is that they're all such emotionless things. I actually thought one of the weakest parts of the movie was that Rocket is so mad at Star-Lord. Like, because that feels very out of character for Rocket. I get that he's, you know, don't call me rat or don't call me whatever, but I don't feel like he would be so bitter at Star-Lord because who's going to fly the ship? That felt like it was very forced. And so that's where I thought, like, it almost was they went for the emotion at the wrong times. And I think the Guardians of the Galaxy, you need to go all the way in one way or all the way in the other way. And if you're going to go all the way in on the sarcastic, no really dramatic emotional moments, you need to completely cut them out then. And you need to have Rocket and Star-Lord be doing their whole, oh, well, you're mad about this, you're mad about that. And you need to have somebody literally just, you know, do something clever and funny that immediately shuts that down rather than have that actually be a plot point for the entire movie.
Yeah. You brought an interesting point up when you're talking about the Guardians of the Galaxy as a group. They're kind of like a D&D party.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you really see that in this game because we're at the part of the campaign where everyone's getting sick and tired of being with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that one guy, in this case it's Rocket, who just hates being shown up all the time. And I just don't know if it translates well, is the thing. It's like, it doesn't translate well for me. I know it translates well for some people. I know some people love this movie. I know when this movie came out, a lot of people didn't like this movie. It is one of the more divisive
Which I'm
entries in
surprised
the
at. I really am. I feel
MCU.
like it's harmless.
I just didn't like it, is like what it comes down
Yeah.
to. Like, is it terrible? No. Like, the CGI isn't as heinous as it has been in some of the other Marvel movies we've watched so far. I think Kurt Russell is like this great villain in it. But there's like these little things that really don't make sense, like continuity wise. And a lot of it revolves around, again, emotional points. I think there's the point at the end of the movie where all the Ravagers show up and they're doing this like funeral for Yondu. Makes absolutely no sense based on the context we've been giving prior in the movie as to why Yondu is an exile from the Ravagers. Because nothing's changed. He still like traded children.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
word
he
got
still did that.
what he did. Like, it made no
And
sense.
it's
It was
like,
just to get the Sylvester Stallone there twice. That's all it was.
It was, and that's exactly what it was. And it's like that. And it's like, okay, I get you're going for this emotional moment, but based on what you've already told us in this movie, this emotional moment makes no sense. And like that type of thing bugs me. It bugs me that Star-Lord is such a bad hero that he listens to someone tell him he is about to take over the entire universe and doesn't get mad until he mentions that he killed his mom.
Well, he's brainwashing him though. You know, he's got the glow in it. Like, he's brainwashing, but that I killed your mom was enough to break the brainwash, I think.
See, the person I watched it with argued that too, and I'm like, yeah, but if someone tells me they're going to spread themselves across the universe, I kind of get concerned.
But they're making more planets. They're creating more, John. You got to think of it as a positive, right?
Well, maybe the problem is I'm just too cynical, and I can't think of it as a positive when one person decides to spread themselves across every living being in the universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I just see through it. Maybe that's what it comes down to. Maybe I'm just not like delusional because I met my father for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you weren't just desperate to have your father be as handsome as Kurt Russell is, right?
He's pretty handsome in this movie.
He's pretty damn good looking. But when you said the D&D kind of campaign, this movie reminded me a lot of video game, and one that I would play and enjoy. And I feel like that's maybe that's not the style it should be going for. But as I said with the comic book for Captain America, the first one, this felt like a video game. This felt like a bunch of bandits doing stuff. It had that. I feel like it did have that Uncharted feel, more characters than Uncharted, but I feel like it had that feel. Star-Lord has a little bit of Nathan Drake in him. And speaking of video games, John, I don't know if this excites you, but this was big news that came out yesterday that The Legend of Zelda is getting a live action movie.
I did hear that.
Yeah, so that was just something I wanted to throw in there. I mean, that's pretty wild. I've never actually played the Zelda games because I didn't have an N64 or Nintendo, so I didn't play them, but that's pretty cool.
It will be interesting to see. It depends what story they go with, but
well, hopefully they murder somebody's favorite story, like so many of these
adaptations
generally do.
Yeah, I feel like another thing that really goes against this movie. I hate the beginning of this movie. Just everything with the Sovereign. It just feels so tacky. It feels so, I don't know. It just feels like it's there for the sake of being there. It feels like the type of thing you put in a movie just to ensure that your characters get where they need to get.
Yeah, the Sovereign was what it was. I didn't really understand it, to be completely frank. Like they're like what? They're so evolved that they just play video games and can attack. Like they're pretty much in a simulation that's just following.
Pretty much the entire thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't really get why that needed to be the case. Maybe it was just so that they could keep coming back over and over again. But did you ever read any of the Guardians of the Galaxy comics or no?
No.
Yeah. So
no, I didn't. I do know that like this is like legitimately like Star-Lord's origins and stuff, and like the whole ego of it all. Like that is a legitimate storyline and a very popular storyline from the Guardians of the Galaxy. But no, I've never really delved into it much. I know a little bit, just from like tangentially reading other comics that involves the characters, but not any specific Guardians character stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that's something. Patrick Staldo says the most provocative question is: does Groot know he is Baby Groot, or is his selfhood suppressed until he grows up a second time?
Well, based on the fact that he's immature, and based on
Mhm.
his immaturity, I don't even know if this is the same Groot.
Yeah.
I would argue that this possibly is just an offspring of Groot.
Yeah, I don't think that I think it's the same Groot, but I do not think that he knows who he is because I think he would know to pick up what he meant by Finn rather than picking up a toe and all the other things that keep
I
coming
would
out of
know
there.
which button to press on a bomb.
Yes, exactly. So I think I think he is Baby Groot, but I don't think he realizes he's Baby Groot. I think he is very much confused. I think he's very much a child.
Yeah. Or a teenager if we're in the end credit scene.
Well, that's true. There's so many end credit scenes
There
in this
are
movie.
4 end credit scenes in this movie.
Oh my god! Thank God that on Disney Plus they give you the option to skip credits to the next scene
Yes.
every time because I would have missed them. There's no way if I owned the DVD, I never would have watched any of them.
No. It's like when
That's
I
crazy.
watched. It's like when I found out X3 has a end credit scene because I accidentally didn't turn the credits off one time.
Yeah, there was a movie like that I just recently found out had an end credit scene, but I can't remember what it was. It's gonna bother me because it was very recent. It was a movie I've seen a whole bunch of times. I was like, holy crap, there's an end credit scene, but I can't remember what it was.
Is it Jingle All the Way starring Arnold Schwarzenegger?
I hate that movie, so no, it's not.
Because that has an end credit scene, which
That's
I
funny.
found out last year for the first time.
I've watched that movie exactly one time, and I hated it so much that I don't think I'll ever watch it again. And everybody always says, "But it's one that's so bad." But it's a Christmas classic.
I watch that movie every couple of years.
Yeah, John, you also put yourself through Love Actually over and over again.
I do.
So, I just get the song. I feel it in my fingers. I feel it in my toes. Over, it's stuck in my head. It's a virus, man. That song is brutal. Oh, it gets in there and it does not get out. And every time, like I stub my toe or something, I'm like, I feel it in my fingers, and then that's it. It's over. It's over. It's the rest of the month.
How did you feel about the introduction of Mantis in this movie?
I like Drax the most out of everybody. Therefore, I like the interactions between Drax and Mantis because I like that he just keeps calling her ugly, and I like the part. See, I thought the part where he says, I was trying to let you down easy by saying that you were hideous. That kind of made me laugh because it's just like, I like the characterization of the Drax character. Mantis overall didn't really felt like a prop, felt like a plot device more than anything. Didn't really feel like a character because her whole purpose was she can get into the mind of this guy. So it felt like she was there just because they needed something that would make him more vincible. I know that's not the word, but this way he's not invincible. And so I felt like she was a plot device. I felt like she was secondary enough that it didn't matter. And I also, again, like that they're giving this like fake romance relationship between her and Drax because Drax, I feel like Drax is the one character that really excels from those side one-on-ones in a way that the other characters don't. But the Mantis character overall, I could take her or leave her. It doesn't matter to me.
So I'm not. Drax doesn't quite do it for me in this movie because I think some of his lines are really bad. He has the best moments in this movie, but there are some times where I'm like, that is so dumb. I cannot believe that line was written. But the Drax Mantis relationship, just like their like friendship and everything, as it evolves moving forward, and especially, so here's the thing. You're never watching the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, right?
You know, John, it's on my list.
You are going to watch it? So no spoilers.
Movies to never watch. But anyway, continue.
Oh, okay. So do you want the spoilers or not?
Just spoil it, man, because even if I watch it, I'm not going to remember what you say. Or
it's going to become relevant.
Oh, nice.
So last year, they released this Christmas special, which is supposed to be like this lead up into the latest Guardians of the Galaxy that released earlier this year, which is Drax and Mantis go to Earth to kidnap Kevin Bacon for Star-Lord.
Nice.
For Christmas. Yeah. That's the plot of that entire Christmas special. And in it, we also get the revelation that Mantis is actually Star-Lord's sister.
I love that they put that into a Christmas special instead of putting it
Yeah.
into one of the movies. That's my favorite.
Yeah. So it's really weird that like this character develops that way. But the Drax Mantis relationship in that show is hilarious. In that special is hilarious. And like the only reason you should watch that is because of those two characters. But I find like that's also one of my problems with this movie is like we never really get the Guardians as a whole in this movie, I feel. Where everyone's kind of got their like weird partnerings going off, right?
Can I just say though,
Yes, yes.
I do feel like that's a product of sequels in what is assumed to be a
Sure.
trilogy, right? Two Towers, Empire Strikes Back. You kind of the first movie they have to be together because you have to get to know them and how they interact. The second movie is hoping that they'll get back together, but their characters well enough that they can go off on their own. And then the third movie is how do we get them back together?
Right. Sure. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I just feel like because we're focusing, I think they split the groups too small because we get the Drax Mantis group, we get the Peter and Ego group, we get the Rocket and Yondu group, and then we get the Gamora and Nebula group, which I think has the strongest characterization out of any of this, and it's kind of just glossed over, unfortunately, rather than really dug into, despite the fact that like. These are the two characters that have a relationship to the big bad of this entire first three phases of Marvel, right? Like I feel like we should have and the when Nebula is talking about the fact that like Thanos would make her and Gamora fight, and every time she lost, Thanos would like take part of her out and replace it. It's just so harrowing. Mm-hmm. And it's not delved into deep enough, right? Where it's like, or the moment where Nebula's just like, I just wanted a sister. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is so powerful, but everything around it is just distracting from it.
Yeah, I like that one too. I do agree with you. They probably could have done 2 breakups. The cast isn't large enough, right? You think about with Star Wars, which I just mentioned, you have Luke, Han, you have Leia, you have C-3PO and R2-D2 who are always going to kind of be on their own journey. You have Chewbacca. Like you have 6 characters that can naturally split, and then you have Luke go off and find Yoda because he has to go on his own journey, and he's the protagonist, so he gets the hero's journey. So I'm okay with the fact that Chris Pratt is going on his own journey with his father in this movie. But to have Rocket doing his thing and to have Gamora doing her thing and then to have Drax kind of on his own thing, I do agree with you. They probably could have kept it to 3 instead of 4, even though Drax is still like Drax and Gamora are still on the same planet and everything like that, but their stories are very separate. So
yeah,
I got it.
I know, like those are the things that really bug me about this movie. It's just like it almost feels too distracted. When like I feel like we do get 2 very solid storylines, but even the fact that like we get these emotional moments with Yondu and Peter towards the end of the movie, like they don't feel earned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, like I said, this is a 3-star movie to me.
Yeah,
it's not 3.5. It's not 4. It's 3. And 3 for me. 3-star movie is like kind of where most movies should land, which is just, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whatever, like the theme, the tone, the characters. I enjoyed the story. I didn't feel insulted. They over-explained some things, but they didn't over-explain too much. That's kind of where I land with the 3-star movie. And this is that. And that automatically makes it better than, in my opinion,
a lot of these movies that we watched so far.
A lot of these movies. Yeah. I mean, I think now I have 5 3-star movies. Or no, I have 6 3-star movies out of the first 15. And
it must be more than you ever thought you would have.
I have 6 movies that I gave 3 stars or higher. And then Ant-Man and Iron Man 3, I said, like, I'd watch those again. I don't love them, but I'd watch them again. That's where I've landed so far.
Wow. Who would have thunk it?
I know. Like, and again, though, when everybody's like, you got to come see these movies, what drives me crazy is if I walk out of there and I say, that was a good movie, most of the people you'd be seeing that movie with on opening night or something would be like, that was the greatest thing ever. And if you're coming out of that movie being like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen, that's what makes me dislike these movies more than anything. That's kind of what makes me dislike these movies, because I'm like, that wasn't that good. Can it just be good? And Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 to me was just good. That's how I felt.
Good.
So
Good.
I'll take it. What do you want to say? What do you want to end as on the dark note here, John? Give me something negative that we can end this podcast on, since you hated this movie. And you hated it. What'd you give it? 1.5 stars?
I gave it 1.5. I dislike it a lot. I think I like Thor. I spent a lot of time trying to decide, like, between this, Thor: The Dark World, and Age of Ultron, which was worse. Ultimately, I did give it to Age of Ultron, though.
Yeah, Age of Ultron is so much worse, John, and so is the Incredible Hulk. And
the Incredible Hulk's below. Don't worry, the Incredible Hulk's still at the bottom.
But I have Age of Ultron behind the Incredible Hulk.
I know. I don't know. This movie just doesn't do it for me. Like I said, it's just, this is a personal preference. This is something I know people just aren't going to agree with me with. Although I know there are probably some people out there who do agree with me, and I am going to take solace in that.
Now, did you rank this higher than Thor: The Dark World or no?
No, I did not.
Okay, so here's the deal. You need to watch those two movies back to back, double feature it, and
that sounds terrible.
Honestly tell me that Thor: The Dark World is better. I understand even not liking Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but if you were to watch those two movies back to back, I think it would be pretty hard to say I enjoyed Thor: The Dark World more. I really do.
I like the character of Thor a lot more than you do, though.
Yeah, but that villain, man, is
I know.
It's so bad.
I'm aware. They're very, very close to each other. I think they're pretty much on par with each other for me. But the Thor of it all kind of ekes it out just a little bit.
Well, that is certainly a negative note to end on. I can't believe you would say such a thing. But anyway, like I said, we're on Twitter now. So Movie Specialist, SPCLSTS. Find us. If you don't know what I'm saying, if you follow the Survivor Specialist Twitter account, just put movie instead of Survivor, and it's the same spelling of Specialist. Specialist is too long of a word for Twitter handle, so it's a bummer. You have to go short. So Movie Specialist over there. We'll start tweeting about some actual movie stuff. I think we have like 8 followers right now, so not really much of a reason to say.
We have like 27 followers, I'm pretty sure.
Do we?
I don't know. I might be making that up. Maybe I'm confusing with who we're following.
No, yeah, we're following 27. There's only 8 following us. So come over, follow us. I know we did it after last week's podcast, and I was like, we should just make one of these. So we'll be tweeting out more about what we're doing, everything like that. Also, if you are a Survivor fan and you listen to mine and Alexa's podcast, I was talking about Patreon changes that are coming. So check out patreon.com/Survivor Specialist. There's no reason for you as a movie buffs fan to go on there yet. But as of January 1, John and I will be doing a weekly podcast that'll be going up there strictly for patrons. So nothing will change on the channel. You're still going to get everything we've been giving you. There's just going to be additional stuff for those who pay to have it. So that's it. We're trying to make this a little bit more of a thing. I mean, hey, we're 120 episodes in, I think, when you add up all the episodes we did, plus the Oscar episodes, plus this is episode number 15 of this. So I think we're about 120 episodes into this. Might as well start putting a little bit more behind it. And we love talking movies, and we're at an exciting time of the year for movies with a lot of big movies coming out. And now that SAG-AFTRA has finally ended their strike, hopefully that means we'll get good movies that come out probably in 2025. 2024 is going to be a struggle. But you got anything else, John, or is that it?
No, that's all I've got this week.
Cool, dude. So we'll be doing the Holdovers next week and
Spider-Man
Homecoming. Yeah. So Spider-Man Homecoming and the Holdovers. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next Wednesday.